Good evening, East Goshen. Hope you had a great day today. It is Thursday, January 7th, and we are back to wrap up the book of Malachi today. Now, Tuesday we were in verse 1. Today we will be in verse 10, still in chapter 3. And we'll talk briefly about chapter 4 at the end because I just want to give you a quick note on that. So chapter 3, verse 10, which says, "Bring the whole tithe into the storehouse, that there may be food in my house. Test me in this, says the Lord Almighty, and see if I will not throw open the floodgates of heaven and pour out so much blessing that there will not be room enough to store it." So here in verse 10, God has just indicted Israel, the last indictment of the book. He says that they have failed to give the tithe. In fact, he uses the language, they have robbed God. Because the Lord has provided all good things. He gives the people gifts to steward. Whatever they have in this life is given first by God and rightfully belongs to God, who is the creator of all. And so what he is saying in this passage is that the people have failed to give back to God what he has asked of them. The temple tithe would have supported the Levites, but it also would have supported the widows and orphans and people who are marginalized in Israelite society. And so by withholding this tithe, by not giving to the temple, by not giving the 10% off the top, the people have robbed God. They have not done right by the poor in their society, and they have thereby robbed God. They have not given what they should have. This verse gets to the radical generosity that is commanded of God's people, that is expected of God's people. If you are in relationship with a holy and loving God, you are called to be radically generous, to give the first and best of what you have, because rightfully it belongs to the Lord. And we talk about this in the Sermon on the Mount. We talked about this several times in our series on generosity that we did in November. But we are called to be radically generous. And when we are radically generous, notice what the verse says, that the Lord will pour out blessings so that there won't be room to store it. Test the Lord in this. Not that we will get money in response, not that we will get financial gains of any kind or we'll get material blessings, but that we will be participating in the life of the community of faith. We'll be participating in what God is doing in bringing justice tangibly by providing for the needs of those who can't provide for themselves. And then he will bless us by enabling us to do the work of ministry, by enabling us to give more and more. Those blessings are meant to be poured back out. We'll overflow with life abundant because of the way that we have leveraged our resources for those that God has called us to love tangibly. So that here at the end of Malachi is the focus. And so the question today is, how am I being radically generous? How am I testing God's abundant blessings by giving away what I have? How can I push that to the next level? So I want you to reflect, pray, think about that for today. And just a note here on chapter 4. Chapter 4 is an addendum of sorts to the book of Malachi. And it just tells the people of Israel to remember the law, remember the decrees, remember the prophets. And that's how it ends. The Old Testament ends with that note to remember and obey the law and the prophets. And sure enough, we turn the page to the Gospels, and Jesus says, I have not come to destroy. I have not come to tear down the law and the prophets. I have come to fulfill them. So we've reached the end of the minor prophets. We have gained the full scope of their message. Hundreds of years of prophetic words uttered by people who are enabled by the Spirit. And here at the end, it reminds us that the focus is on the law. But Jesus tells us that law is the law of love ultimately. And so we've wrapped up the minor prophets. We've wrapped up here at the very end of the Old Testament. Thank you if you were able to follow along through all of the minor prophets. If you have been tracking with us through all of our devotional videos, right as of now, you'll have completed all 12 minor prophets and the book of Luke. So that's 13 books of the Bible. And next week, what I want to start on is I want to start in the book of 1 John. We'll be looking at 1st, 2nd, and 3rd John, or otherwise known as the Johannine epistles, just a fancy term to say written by John or by John. But we'll start in 1 John, and I will see you Tuesday to begin 1 John together. Hope you have a great weekend, and we see you on Sunday for worship. Thanks. Have a great rest of your night.